A group of American soldiers surrounded by Seminole Indians. All that's protecting them is a fort wall that was built in a couple of days as the soldiers wait for reinforcements. This is the scene in 1836 during the Second Seminole War. Marc Anthony Cooper and his men fight for their lives as the desperate Seminole tribes aggressively try to defend the land they were promised. Today on Gems of the Nature Coast, we explore the history behind Fort Cooper State Park in Floral City, Florida, where this historic battle was fought. You'll see the actual fort site where American soldiers held out for many days while constantly warding off attacks from the Seminoles. We'll also find out how the Park Service is using creative ways to tell the story and educate visitors of this conflicting time in American history, and how you can enjoy this park with its beautiful trails, primitive campsites, and recreational area. So follow along as we take you back in time to the Second Seminole War on Gems of the Nature Coast. No one knows the park better than Park Ranger Harry Mitchell. For 16 years, Harry has been responsible for preserving Fort Cooper's legacy as well as maintaining the surrounding Withlacoochee Trail.
Fort Cooper is a Florida state park. It's one of the earlier Florida state parks. It is a historic site. It's actually on the National Historic Register. And we have the fort site. There's remnants of some early Native American activity in the area, not just the Seminoles that were here. And there's also remnants of some old early homesteads in the area. Fort Cooper, way back when, or the area that is Fort Cooper, portions of it have been just all different types of things, from orange groves to peanut fields to planted pines. But currently it is a Florida State Park. It consists of about 730 acres approximately. We have 5 miles of walking trails. There's a large picnic area, a small playground. We have several buildings that we offer, or at least 2 buildings that we offer for family activities like birthday parties and weddings and family reunions. This is the actual site of Fort Cooper, and Fort Cooper was a Second Seminole War fort. It was named after Marc Anthony Cooper, and Marc Anthony Cooper was a unit that came from Georgia. They were the Georgia First Volunteers, I believe is what their unit was called. And they came down to Florida to help the United States government remove the Seminoles from Florida. Came to Florida, they joined Winfield Scott's unit in the Ocala area there at the fort. And Winfield Scott marched his men along with Fort Cooper's men, which was about 380 men, along the old military trail, heading to the fort in Tampa. They managed to get to the spot very near where Highway 200 crosses the Withlacoochee River, and the Seminole Indians attacked them. quite a few casualties, a lot of wounded, drove the Seminoles off and then continued on their way to Tampa. And when they got to this spot here, Winfield Scott had ordered the men to, Marc Anthony Cooper's men, to stay right here, stay with the sick and wounded. He was going to go off and pick up reinforcements and supplies and then send troops back to Marc Anthony Cooper and his men that were here at this site. He was ordered to set up some sort of a fortress to protect himself. So the Georgia Volunteers, they went about building a fort, and these men, they were farmers and just laborers and really no engineers, so they went about building this fort as best they could. And so they were here for about 3 days building the fort, and you can imagine having over 300 men. You can build a lot of stuff in 3 days with 300 men. So they pretty much had the fort complete, or some sort of a protection built. And the Seminole Indians, kind of following along, found them. The first thing that the Seminoles did was they tried to eliminate the food source that the soldiers had by running off their cattle. They surrounded the fort, kept Marc Anthony Cooper and his men penned up within the fort. And it really wasn't of a big concern at the time for Marc Anthony Cooper, because they were protected inside the fort. And he knew that within a few days, reinforcements along with supplies were coming back. And they had been promised that within 9 days, the troops would come back. And so they kept the Seminoles, which had them surrounded, kind of at bay. Whenever they would see them, they would shoot through the fort walls and try to keep them away. But 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days come and go, and there's no reinforcements coming. 10, 11, 12 days, they're all but out of provisions. All their food is gone, basically. 12, 13, 14 days, they're going, my God, nobody's coming back, and we're surrounded, we're starving to death. Unbeknownst to Marc Anthony Cooper, the Seminoles had discovered that there was a relief column coming up to Fort Cooper. And the Seminole Indians, which Marc Anthony Cooper estimated to be over 500 Seminole Indians, that's a lot of people surrounding you, made one kind of a last-ditch effort to drive the soldiers off. And it was kind of I wouldn't call it a major battle, but more than just the skirmishes that they'd had for the previous 2 weeks. As fast as it started, it ended. Marc Anthony Cooper, during those battles, he lost only one man, Isaiah Cook, and it's recorded that Isaiah Cook was so distraught that he charged outside of the fort trying to get the other soldiers to come out with him to run the Seminoles off, and the Seminoles cut him down just as soon as he left the fort. So he was the only casualty, but they did have, I believe it was 22 wounded from the events that were going on here at Fort Cooper. But at that point, like I said, the Seminoles, they decided that, hey, these troops are coming up, and they disappeared back into the woods. And Marc Anthony Cooper, at that point, rejoined the column, continued to Fort Brooke in Tampa, and that was the last action that they saw, because shortly after that they were all mustered out of the military and sent back to Georgia.
One of the main highlights at the park is the Fort Cooper site itself, which now stands a representation of the fort wall. The fort was used as a defense from surrounding Seminole attacks in the Second Seminole War.
This is our representation of fort wall at Fort Cooper as it would have existed back in 1836. What the soldiers would have done, because of the vegetation in the area, it was mostly longleaf pine, and they would have gone out and cut these longleaf pine for hundreds of yards around the fort site, and use the pines, a longleaf, to construct a fort wall, kind of a protection to get behind. What we've used here is actually old telephone poles that we have acquired off of the WYKE State Trail back when it was constructed, and these hold up a lot better than the longleaf pine would. What we used to do is about every 3 years we'd have to come back in and replace the natural longleaf pine. Well, actually it was slash pine. One of our volunteers got the idea of using these older telephone poles, and they really do kind of look like, you know, it would have been a natural pine. So we use this just for it's a visual reference for folks when they come out, because everybody wants to see the fort, and that's one of our big questions. I want to come out and see the fort. Well, we don't have a fort, but we do have a fort site, and we send folks up and they kind of get a feel of what would have been here back in the 1830s. This is the actual site of Fort Cooper. It consisted of about 2.5 acres, so it was a large site. And you can imagine having 360 plus men. You needed a fairly large area to have them in, along with their supplies and you know, everything that they had with them. They did have a 5-pound mountain howitzer that they also had, and all that would have been kept with inside the fort site. But the site is strategically located. It is right off of the old military trail. It's right beside a lake, Lake Holatha-Kaha, which at the time was a lot higher. The water was crystal clear, you know, good drinking water. And yeah, it was just kind of the perfect spot, and it's up high. So, you know, you kind of look for the higher elevation to set up your fortress. And that's what we have here at Fort Cooper.
Every year in March, the park presents Fort Cooper Days. This weekend, volunteers dressed as American soldiers and Seminole Indians reenact Marc Anthony Cooper's historic battle. Park visitors hear from the American soldiers why they think it's best for the Seminoles to move out of Florida. And the Seminoles explain why they're fighting so strongly to protect the land they were promised. Spectators also get a glimpse of the life back in the 1830s while walking through the camps and craft vendors that are set up throughout the park. Visitors also like to attend the park's annual Bluegrass Festival, featuring a variety of bluegrass bands playing throughout the day as patrons enjoy the beautiful outdoors. Along with its historical significance, the quiet and beautiful surroundings of Fort Cooper State Park make it one of the best places to spend the weekend at one of their primitive campsites.
This is our primitive camping area. We have 4 sites. We do take reservations, and it's highly recommended because we do only have the 4 sites. It is a primitive area. It's a tent-only area. The only facility on the site is there's portalet and a water spigot that's shared among the 4 sites. They're large sites. We accommodate up to 25 people in a group per site. And it's a favorite place of Boy Scouts, and even some large school groups come out and will camp here. But it's kind of in a remote area on the backside of our park. So the walking trails are accessible very easily. From the campground to our picnic area is right at a mile walk. And from the picnic area, there's trails that run off from the picnic area, approximately 5 miles of trails. And you know, we get a lot of folks that utilize the trails. One of our visitation right now is bicycle riders, because we're right next to the Withlacoochee State Trail, and we'll have folks come out and they'll pitch their tent and they'll spend a day riding the Withlacoochee Trail and then come back here as their spot for the night.
Visitors can also spend a leisurely day at the park at the large recreational area where friends and family can gather for a trip on the lake, picnic, birthday party, or wedding ceremony.
This is our picnic area, our day use area. Folks come here, especially on weekends, picnic. We sometimes have canoes that we rent according to the lake levels. We do have the pavilion that's behind me that we rent out, or if it's not rented, it's available first come, first serve. It'll seat up to about 80 people with the picnic tables. And then we also have what we call the Lake Lodge, or our rec hall. And that's a full service building. We have folks that come in and they do family reunions, birthday parties, weddings, all types of family activities. And it's fully equipped, it's air conditioned, it's heated, and it has a small kitchen, which includes a full-size refrigerator. And that gets used a lot. Really year-round. On the weekends it does. And that one you definitely need to make a reservation for, especially if it's for a weekend, because it is highly popular for this area. This also is kind of the center of the park. Our nature trails go off from the picnic area.
To explore the park and all its wildlife, there's no better way than to walk on foot on one of the self-guided trails conveniently located around the park.
We have about 5 miles of trails. One of them is called the Dogwood Trail. It says it takes about 20 minutes to walk through. Really, if you walk along slow and kind of take in everything that there is, it takes a good 45 minutes to walk around. But it is called the Dogwood Trail. And in the spring, the dogwood trees that grow along the Dogwood Trail are in bloom, which is kind of nice. It's very heavily shaded, very nice leisurely walk. There's absolutely no way you could ever get lost on a Dogwood Trail unless you go crashing through the bushes, because it's very well maintained. But to do all 3 loops, it's about a 5-mile walk, and if you have time, come out and enjoy the park.
The park also preserves the remnants of the old military road, where General Scott, Marc Anthony Cooper, and soldiers would have traveled to the main military fort in Tampa.
This is the old military trail, which is different than the Fort King Road, but they did, both those roads were used back in the 1830s, 1840s, 1850s as a route from what's currently the Ocala area to Tampa. And this one here existed back in 1836 when Winfield Scott, General Scott, was marching through the area with Marc Anthony Cooper. And this would have been the route that they would have taken on their way to the Tampa Bay area. And there's just a short section of this trail that actually remains. Most of it followed Highway 41 and State Road 200 and crossed the Withlacoochee. And as you know today, that's pretty much all developed and highways. So we do have a small remnant of the old military trail. This is one of our new displays, the Seminole Heritage Trail. And it's going to be a series of kiosks like this explaining the Seminole life back in the 1830s and their belief of why they were here and how they lived and what went on with the Seminoles during the Seminole Wars. And this is our first display that we have that's up currently, and it talks about who the Seminole are, where they came from, why they were here, and kind of what they did and how they lived. They had been given this whole Central Florida area under a treaty, and 10 years later they've been told, no, you can't stay here, we're moving you. And they already had their farms, their cabins, their ranches, and they just didn't want to leave. And this is going to be, like I said, the story of them arriving and finally them being either removed or them moving to South Florida through a series of our kiosks.
One of the interesting features about the park is its proximity to the Withlacoochee State Trail. Bicyclers traveling along the trail can easily access the park and explore on a half-mile paved trail winding through the park.
What we have here, this is a little spur that goes from our parking lot at Fort Cooper State Park, and it connects to the Withlacoochee State Trail, which we also manage. And the section that we have here in the park is paved up to the trail, and it's approximately just under half a mile long. And then once you exit to the Withlacoochee State Trail, you have access to over 46 miles of trails, paved trails, multi-use trails that runs from almost to Dunellen and ends just north of Dade City at Highway 301.
Today, Fort Cooper State Park stands as a historic reminder of the events that took place in the Second Seminole War. The actual fort no longer stands, but the history is preserved by the park rangers and volunteers that continue the fort's legacy. The park not only remains a historical landmark, but also offers a relaxing day for those to explore nature and spend time with family and friends.
For me, just being able to come out in the mornings or the evenings or whenever and walk through the park and listen to the birds and see the wildlife, I love that. Yeah, it's just the ultimate to me.
Whether it's a leisurely walk on a trail, a weekend getaway camping trip, or a family reunion, Fort Cooper State Park truly is a gem of the Nature Coast.